This is William Smith with another idea for you on how to best use the California Association of Realtors Residential Purchase Agreement. I'm with Coldwell Banker Realty in Carmel, California, and we're talking about traditions in the Monterey County using the California Association of Realtors contract. So with that, I want to talk about the difference between active method removal and passive removal of contingencies. If you use the current California Association of Realtors Residential Purchase Agreement, you don't have the option for passive. If you use another legal document that is legal in California, but does have passive method removal, you'll want to know what the difference is between active and passive. Passive method removal means that you have a contingency period. Let's say it's 17 days. And let's say at the end of 17 days, all of your inspection contingencies need to be removed. With passive method, on the 18th day, you don't have any contingency left. The time is up. You didn't perform. You no longer have a contingency. The reason the California Association of Realtors took that out, gosh, it's been almost 20 years ago, is because there were too many lawsuits that came in because buyers and buyer agents are busy. They forget. They don't look at the calendar. And the time passes and they said, we need to get some more inspections. And the seller or their agent says, your time's up. So in order to avoid that, the California Association of Realtors has adopted, built into their contract, the active method removal of contingencies. What is that? That means in writing, you are removing the contingency that is being referred to with that particular document to remove it. Could be for your loan, your appraisal, it could be for inspections, it could be for the sale of another property, could be any number of things. So with all of that in mind, you have the protection as a buyer to actively remove the contingency before it's removed. Now, what if you're a seller and all of a sudden 17 days comes up, no contingency removal? You have one recourse, and that is to give a notice to perform or quit. The time frame on that is negotiated at the time that the contract is accepted. Usually by default, the default time period is 48 hours. But you can make it 5 days if you want it. You can make it 1 day. A buyer might want to have it be for 12 hours. Who knows what the time frame would be finally successfully negotiated. But whenever that time frame is, when that notice is given, the buyer has that time frame to perform. Now, you can't give that form too early. It has to be on the day that the contingency is removed or after. If you give it too early, it's not able to be enforced, and there is some danger of doing that incorrectly. So be aware of what the time frames are to give the notice to perform or quit. But once you give that notice to perform or quit, the seller generates it and gives it to the buyer. The seller can unilaterally, at the end of that time frame, cancel the escrow, fully refunding the earnest money deposit to the buyer, and now accept another offer from another buyer. It's particularly important if you have a backup offer. All right, so what happens if you decide not to enforce it? You've given the notice, but you're not going to enforce it the day that it expired. You're going to then agree to give the buyer some more time. The best way to do that is to get an extension, allowing the buyer to have more time to get their investigations done. That's the proper way to do it. Most lenders would want to make sure that the extension is part of that so that you have a complete contract and the timeframes make sense. So when you're in a situation where you are either the buyer or the seller, pay attention to the removal of contingencies and making sure that the timeline is done. Now, most transaction coordinators that are independent contractors or part of a team are very aware of when those deadlines come up. And hopefully a week or two in advance, we start gearing up for getting that removal. And we know well in advance that the time frame is not going to be met. And that's when you get the extension and you make sure that communication takes place. It's a much better escrow negotiation period. If you do that, communication is always important, and make sure that you stay in contract with your time frames. Nothing more frustrating than not knowing whether or not your buyer has gotten their loan approval, and now it's the day before they're supposed to remove the contingency, and then you find out that the appraisal hasn't even been completed yet and turned into the underwriter, and it might be a week longer. Let's find out about that a week in advance, not the day of or the day after the contingency is supposed to be removed. So, William Smith here with another helpful hint. We're going to go into each different part of the contract and look at it from both perspectives, the buyer and the seller, so that we can strategize and assist, making sure that those negotiations go smoother and that the escrow periods are much more pleasant. So, William Smith signing off. Thank you very much.